So welcome back to the Race Series podcast. We are in the thick of Ironman season now. And this week we are off across Europe to one of the biggest and most popular Ironman races on the European circuit. Not only that, but our very own Katy is racing this next weekend. So let's head to Ironman Copenhagen.
Yes, I have got a big vested interest in today's podcast and very excited that I'll be racking my bike in Copenhagen in, as of recording this, 6 days' time. And we are delighted today to be joined by Milly Garbett, who is a senior coach at Total Tri and also the owner of Total Strength Endurance, so helping support lots of our athletes with all of their strength and conditioning needs. And she raced this race last year, and not only did she have an incredible performance, but I think you were one of the happiest racers I've ever seen on an Ironman course, Milly. So tell us, why did you pick Copenhagen?
To say happiest, luckily there was no footage of me for maybe like the last 5 miles of the run course. So I still claim to be the happiest Ironman athlete out there. I chose Ironman Copenhagen. It's my first Ironman. For my first one, I didn't want a particularly hilly course. I wanted a controlled swim. Like I wouldn't going to be a fan of really choppy swim. So I know like the swim at Copenhagen, I mean, we'll talk about the swim a little bit further on, but it was generally calm in a bay. So like the conditions suited me, the courses suited me. And then Copenhagen was just a place I wanted to go to anyway. So everything kind of just aligned in it, like swim, bike, run, all looked like it was going to suit me. So that's kind of why we went for Copenhagen.
Amazing. So let's start then at the very beginning, because not only for a first Ironman, but for anybody that it's their first Ironman traveling abroad.
Yeah.
We touched on this last week when we were discussing leads, that there is a new level of stress that comes with that, isn't there? Packing the bike into a box, doing a European race where you have got travel. So let's start at the beginning. Have you got any advice or tips for people that are kind of traveling and into race week and what that looks like?
Yeah, so I think most people that we know of will be flying out Wednesday, Thursday, which I flew out Thursday last year, and that gave us plenty of time to be out Thursday. With Copenhagen kind of being a split transition, so some people kind of choose to stay near swim start and other people will choose to stay in the city centre. We chose to stay in the city centre, which is closer to the finish, and from kind of the airport, if you're flying in, you can either really get a taxi really easy, which you can put your bike box in the taxi straight to wherever you want to go, or you can use the tram system, which is really straightforward to use as well, and you can put your bike box on there. So Copenhagen as a place, like for race stress, it's minimal. I would just kind of make sure that you've got your plan in place of what you want to do. Like I wouldn't go into it not really having much of a plan. So just make sure you're kind of aware of all the travel systems. You know where you're staying in relation to kind of like tram stations and where T1 is, because you're going to need to travel there, Friday, Saturday as well.
And in terms of it being a split transition, is there a kind of a way you recommend people to do things, or is that really varied for each person?
Do you think as in where to stay, or as in kind of what to do like Friday, Saturday?
Yeah, what to do in terms of like registering, racking your bike.
I mean, registration is all at T1 anyway, and that's where your merch tent is anyway. So everyone's going to go to the merch tent. So you're going to have to go to T1, either whether it's Friday you want to go or Saturday. But honestly, I think from the city centre, it was no more than 15-20 minutes on the tram. It's just making sure you know the stops. So yeah, you definitely want to go down to T1 if you're not staying there, because you'll have to anyway. But it's good. I think it's good to go prior to racking, so you've got everything, you're familiarised with everything that's going on.
And they do offer, don't they, from hearing you talk about it last year, like a practice swim, don't they? And you can get in and familiarise yourself, because I think that's, for a lot of people, one of the things that you can feel a bit nervous about swimming somewhere new. So getting in and just knowing where the start is, how that's going to feel, and they offer that, don't they?
Yeah, you can swim at any time. So it's not even strict times. It's literally any time of the day you can get in. I got in on the Friday, but last year the weather was quite warm in Copenhagen, so even all the locals were in, kind of using the area as a bit of a beach anyway. They kind of welcome swimming at any time, I think, there.
Awesome. So let's start with race morning then. We've obviously navigated the split transition, racked your bike the day before, get down to the race start on race morning. What things do you need to consider here? What's the atmosphere like in Copenhagen, and any kind of top tips for the pre-race start?
Yeah, so again, thing to consider would be just your travel down to the start. So if you're in the city centre, you need to consider that. I think we gave about an hour to get down there, and then we actually timed how long it was taking us to get from our Airbnb to literally T1, and I think it was 45 minutes. It took us, like, with the walk into the tram station on the tram, then walking to actual T1. It was about 45 minutes. So give yourself plenty of time to allocate with trams and travel, and then T1 is really straightforward. Go into your bike, do everything that you've got to do. There's plenty of toilets around. They're actually not even like portaloos, they're proper toilets. So there's plenty of opportunity just to kind of get yourself settled on race morning.
And is it as good as the videos look, the swim start?
So the swim start is good. I was very nervous last year on swim start. I'm not too sure I took it all in officially, but because I think it's a pro field this year, is it as well? They got pro field?
I don't think so.
No, so last year they had pro field. So they start the pros off, and then they do the Nordic clap before the start, and then Thunderstruck comes on, and that's kind of getting you into hype. So it's very good. And also pre-swim, you are allowed to get in for a warm-up swim as well. I did that. I fully recommend doing that because it really settled the nerves. The water there is really nice. And so once I was in, I was kind of like, yeah, ready to go.
It's good just to flush the seat with a bit of water as well. Actually, just helps with it not feeling too tight.
And they've got a designated area just to get in and warm. And I think you're allowed to be in right before the pros start. So you've got plenty of time to get in as well.
I think there's not pros this year because I think the pros are in Kalmar, which is the day before.
They alternate, do they? Yeah. Makes sense.
And in terms of the swim start, we'll chat through a little bit what the course looks like. But I remember you saying last year that you actually have to decide your wave beforehand.
I'd never seen this before at a race, but I was aware of it because it's in the athlete guide. But when you go register, a very unique kind of setup. So they have all the swim hat colours ready for you to actually pick your swim hat colours. So each swim hat colour represents a swim wave, and you'll be able to see it in your athlete guide, but they do have a great big board if you've not looked when you register. But you basically choose a wave you want to go in. So like wave 1 was like sub-hour swimmers. Wave 2 was like up to 1 hour 10, if I remember off my head. Wave 3, like up to 1 hour 15. And I think there's 5 or 6 waves total. Interestingly, the last wave was anything slower than 1 hour 19, which I still consider 1 hour 19 like a good swim. Regarding the swim, I actually believe I probably put myself in the wrong wave. So I actually would recommend going probably a wave up to what you think your swim's going to be. Because when I got in, I was just swimming. I swam at hour 14 and I was just swimming through people, swimming over people. So if you're a confident swimmer and you feel safe going a little bit further up, then I definitely would recommend going further up in your wave.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Really good advice, because I think it sounds like then potentially that last wave could be quite busy.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people are swimming like above 1 hour 20, aren't they? And I would recommend, if you're swimming around 115, 120, just to go in that higher wave anyway, so you've got a better swim space.
I thought you'd just pick what swim wave based on which one had a pink hat.
Luckily, my swim wave did have a pink hat, but I think I've gone above.
The truth's coming out now.
The irony of that.
So in terms of once you know what wave you're in and you turn up, and I'm assuming they put you into waves based on your colour hat and you all start together. What does the course actually look like when athletes get in?
So you get in, it's a running start, so you run in from the beach. You kind of swim out for maybe 100 metres to a buoy. Then you turn right and you're swimming straight. You can see the buoy on that course map there. Then you're turning right and you're swimming basically straight. Nice or unique thing about this swim course is that there's 2 bridges. So on those 2 bridges, not only are those bridges kind of rammed with spectators, so as you're swimming under, everyone's cheering for you, they've also got distance spanners on them. So as you're swimming through the bridges, you can look up and you can see, how far you are into the swim. That happens twice. Once you go through this last bridge, it's not much further, and then you're doing the turn buoy to kind of turn around and come straight back. Around that turn buoy, there is a timing gate, because you'll get a halfway timing. You get a timing chip halfway. So you just need to make sure that you swim through that timing gate. So it can get a little bit, tight and chaotic through there. So just Just give yourself some space to get through that time gate. Then you're going to turn left and you're going to come straight back on the swim course. You swim a little bit further on the second straight because you've got to go all the way down to the corner of like the bay. You do like a little L shape before you kind of come back in and come back to swim exit.
That sounds really unique, actually. I've never done a swim where you've had distance markers. Very unique to that course.
And also because it's in a bay and it's not narrow, but you can breathe to one side, you see spectators stood on one side of the beach, you breathe to the other side, you see spectators stood on the other side of the beach. So it's just, the swim goes quite fast. I think that's one of the reasons why.
And so you've already said that it's fairly sheltered. It's not particularly rough because it's in a bay. Obviously salt water.
Yep.
Anything else the athletes can expect? Visibility, wildlife, let's kind of talk things you might see.
So I found the swim is actually relatively shallow for most of the way. So you can see the bottom most of the way. Now, I've heard in past years that there is sometimes jellyfish. I didn't have any jellyfish last year. I heard they were all in Sweden. So maybe this year they'll all be in Sweden again and you won't have any jellyfish. It was really shallow. You could see the bottom. I wouldn't say like the water's crystal clear, but you can see the bottom. The only thing is once you get kind of towards and through underneath the second bridge, it did get quite weedy to the point where the weeds are actually like touching your stomach. And so long as you're prepared for that, you just carry on to swimming and stay calm and it's all fine, really.
And there has been obviously a lot of races over summer that have been really hot and non-wetsuit, but I think from the history of Copenhagen, obviously you never know what's going to happen, but it would be very unlikely for this race to be non-wetsuit, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think like in Scandinavian countries, you're hopefully safe with wetsuits for some years, maybe. Yeah, I think that the water, it was 18 degrees last year and they put out, so it was a nice temperature to be in a wetsuit in, for sure.
And you said that the water was pretty calm. It's not choppy.
Yeah, my experience of it was calm. The only place I experienced some chop, which actually did surprise me because I wasn't expecting it, is, as I said before, you come back in and you have to kind of go right round the corner. You have to swim like an L shape to come back in. It was choppy around that corner. Which did surprise me a little bit. So just be a little bit prepared to have a little bit of chop as you come back round and come back into the swim exit. But that's probably no more than 400 metres.
And so we often talk about the differences in like lapped courses and one loop courses. A 3,800 metre swim on one lap that's a big swim to navigate. Can feel probably quite overwhelming staring down the barrel of that. How do you think is best for athletes to prepare for that being one big loop?
Actually a good point to bring up, and like with last year that being my first Ironman, I think it's quite hard to comprehend how far 3.8k actually is. And when you're stood at the bottom of T1, and because it's such a straight line, you stood at the bottom and you could just see a straight, and you can't actually see the end of where you're going to turn. So that, for me, was actually like an oh god moment, and that's how far we've got to swim. But actually on the day when I swam it, so this will be good advice and probably reassurance for those doing it, that when I swam it, that first straight ended really fast, and I think bridges massively helped. Like I just broke it up like bridge to bridge and buoy to buoy. And I think like last year, like the current was in our favour, so you got to that turnaround point really quickly. So I would just say just break it up bridge to bridge. You can see people all the time, whether that's spectators or swimmers in the water. And I found that mentally helped just break up the swim quite a lot.
I think actually, now I'm thinking about what would I prefer on the swim. Sometimes if you're doing a lapped course and say you do one lap and it feels quite hard, or there's a bit of it that's really choppy or really difficult, mentally you kind of then think, I've got to do that all again. Whereas at least with one big lap, you know that if you've done one bit that's particularly tough and you're through it, you're not going to have to do it again.
I personally didn't find it bad last year. I've done lapped courses like with 70.3s, and I quite liked the single loop course actually. But yeah, honestly, like the bridges massively helped just breaking up, because even on the way back, like you go under like the last bridge and it says like something like 3,000 meters and you know you're almost there. So it just massively helps to break it up and probably boost your mood a little bit as well.
Debating if I'm going to look at those signs or if I'm just going to keep my head down.
Quite hard to not see them if I'm being honest. But no, they're good. It's good.
And then we're coming out of the swim into T1. So we've done our one big swim loop. What can athletes expect in transition at Copenhagen?
So when you exit the swim, the tent where your blue bags are comes up really fast. Like it's a very, very short run to get your bags to the point where I don't even think you've got that much time to pull your wetsuit over your shoulders. So just go straight in, get your bag, like normal change of tent, plenty of chairs, take your time, take the wetsuit off. You then, once you're ready with, you know, helmet on, shoes, nutrition, everything you need, you then take your blue bag, run with it and pop it in one of the bins, because they're going to take those bags with them to T2. So you don't have to come back to T1. The bike transition where the bike racks are is quite long. So it's like a narrow but long run. So I would say make sure you've done a good visualization of where your bike is racked from the tent, because there's a lot of racks and it is very long. So just make sure you know exactly where you're going to go from tent exit all the way to your bike. Last year I used the run to the bike as an opportunity to just take a gel just to get some nutrition on board as well post swim. So I did that as I was running just to save some time. But yeah, just literally just take your time through there, just get everything ready.
And I think it can feel, again, quite overwhelming if it's your first Ironman when you come out the other side of the tent and you're going, wow, there's like 2,000 bikes there. One thing, as obvious as it sounds, is they're very good at numbering or lettering the rows, aren't they? So actually, if you are, you know, H for Harry, thinking of how you're going to remember that you're row H, you know, put a name to it. Another stupid thing is sometimes like people think, oh, I've forgotten my number. How do I remember where I am? Yeah. Remember, it's on your wristband, like you can glance at your number. Yeah. I've done that before where I've thought, oh, I can't remember it, and then gone, oh, it's right there. And then again, so say we're on H for Harry, you've run halfway down. If those bikes are no longer there around yours, you need a fixed point to remember. So is it that there's a lamppost? Is it that there's a gazebo, like a fixed thing? So you know exactly which way you're going to go down your aisle and roughly how long down your bike is situated.
I always like to take pictures of, like, literally almost give myself like a visual walkthrough where I'm going to go, taking pictures in each step just so I know exactly where I'm going to go to collect my bike.
It's a funny one, isn't it? Because you could, the day before, you can take your pictures and you go, do you know what, I know exactly what I'm doing. And then with the adrenaline, you're running through. If you don't have those pictures to recall or whatever it is, your mantra to remember, it's amazing the simplest of things that you can forget. And then you watch people running down the wrong way and I've lost my bike. Yeah.
This is why I got a bright yellow bike.
Yeah, that helps. But no, the transition there is long, probably one of the longest that I have seen. So it is, I would just recommend just literally just know it, like just visualizing, like Kirsty says, knowing what row you are, knowing how far down each row your bike is placed as well will really help.
So we are now out on the bike course. I'm actually looking forward to doing a flatter Ironman because I've mostly done hilly courses, and looking at this bike course, it looks like it could potentially be a faster course. Can you talk us through what that course looks like, Milly?
Yeah. And I think the first point to say this, it's not pan flat. It is rolling and it is an undulating course. We just have nice Danish roads where the course rides nice and smooth. But what's going to happen when you leave T1, so when you leave the beach, about the first 30k is you making your way out of actually Copenhagen city. And then whilst that area is flat and in theory fast, you do need to go careful through here because there's some technical sections. And also because it's city, it can be quite narrow. You can be bunched up with other riders. So you just need to be cautious as you're riding through that first 30k just to make sure you get through there safely. And then once you've kind of left the city, you are riding 2 identical loops basically through the Danish countryside and then along the coastline, just through some small Danish towns. So on these loops, you've got nice smooth roads, rolling and undulating terrain, but you can spend most of your time in aero position here.
And so one thing I've heard about the Copenhagen course is it can be impacted by weather. Are we talking windy, exposed sections, or what advice have you got there?
Yeah, so obviously one thing that with flatter, faster courses is it can be affected by the wind. So the roads are very open. So, you know, if it's hot on the day, you'll feel the sun. But with the wind will really impact you coming back down on the coastline roads where it's really straight. On the loops, a lot of the the loop, a lot of it is kind of you turning and you're changing direction quite a lot. So the wind is not, I would say, is a massive impact there, but on the coastline, the tailwind is going to make that extremely fast. The headwind will make that a little bit more challenging. And on the course as well, there is actually a new spectator hotspot, which they started last year. It's a spot which I've heard they're trying to make it like Solar Hill and Roth. So hopefully the crowds will be increased this year from last year. But it's around 33k on lap 1 and 100k on lap 2. There's basically a 500-meter climb, which is about 4 to 5% in gradient. So that's a nice opportunity just to get out the saddle, but also there should be plenty of spectators there as well.
I did not sign up for hills.
That's nothing for you, Katy.
Well, last year I'm going to talk about music a lot, but last year they had music blaring. So I would just say with that, just keep your heart rate just down a little bit. Try not to spike the power too much going up that hill, because it's easy to do that.
Good to know that there will be support out there, because that is one thing I wasn't really too sure of, with it being a bigger loop that goes kind of further out. Sometimes you don't know if there's going to be a lot of support, as opposed to like Leeds we did last week, where 3 smaller loops. So it is good for people to know that there'll be support out there.
Like the support I suppose is isolated to local areas. So there's definitely sections on the course where there's not much support, but you soon come into a town where, local people are out watching the course. There's definitely enough support on the course. With it being 2 laps as well, there's actually a spot where your own spectators can, if they wanted to, get the bus out and spectate about halfway on the course. They can come see you come round, go on to lap 2. Which is a good option for your spectators to see on the bike course as well.
So that hill aside then looks like it's a fairly flat, apart from a little bit of technical stuff in the first 30k. How would you recommend athletes ride the course in terms of RPE, power, how to pace the course?
I think ultimately that's going to be athlete dependent and depending on your estimated time. I would have a variable power range to ride here. You're riding within your range depending on like the level of wind you're in and the gradient that you're on. So if you're going uphill or in more of a headwind, then I probably would push towards your upper end of your power limit. And if you're riding in a tailwind or downhill, then you use your lower range of your power limit. I mean, we're roughly talking like an RPE 3 to 5. And then on the climbs, you can push it up to a 6 or 7, because they are quite short climbs, making sure that you can recover from that burst of power as well, though, on the course. It's basically an aero position course. So if you stay tucked in your aero position, then you will travel a decent speed on that course for sure. The only thing is, when you go on to lap 2, it will be a little bit more congested, because obviously you've got everyone on course then, and the marshals were giving out penalties last year. So just kind of make sure you're not getting caught up in a draft zone or a pack really as well on that, especially on that lap 2.
I think just to add to what you're saying about it being an aero course, is something that can catch athletes out when they go to a flatter course thinking it's easier. It actually can be harder to hold higher power for a consistent duration, because you actually don't get much freewheeling or any let up to be able to kind of just take your foot off the gas and recover. So if that is 10 watts less than what you're expecting, just as long as it feels sustainable to settle in. And I think the other thing that catches people out is holding position for that long period of time. That hip flexors can become quite tight, like the bottom of your neck, top of your back. That it's okay actually, if you're feeding every 20 minutes, just to get out of the saddle, to like put the hip into the opposite position and flex forwards, just to try and like loosen things up. I remember kind of getting off the bike on flatter courses thinking, I don't think I can even walk with my bike into transition, let alone run a marathon. It does pass though, doesn't it? By the time you've kind of reversed the position, it does pass.
Yeah, it's good. And I think like on this course, there is just like a few really short little climbs, which if you need to, that you can get out of the saddle and just get out of them and have a break of being in TT position as well.
I always use the aid stations as a good time to get out of TT position as well. Just go through the aid stations, sit up, take a minute or so to swap your bottles over. Like you said, Kirsty, take a gel and just, because it is also quite like you've spoke about how physically it feels, but mentally I find it quite tiring being in TT position for a long period of time, because you've got such a laser focus on the position you're in, where you're looking on the road, that sometimes you do just need a minute or so to just sit up, just to give your head a bit of a break from being in that position, I think. And then I say to myself, right, sit up for a minute, then get back into position and go again.
I think like here as well, like, the aid stations are actually in good locations. It's almost like they thought about where they're going to put these aid stations. I think that they're roughly like 25 to 30 kilometers apart. But I mentioned that hill, so you ride that climb twice, so once per loop. And there's an aid station at the top of that climb. Because you're already out the saddle, you're already at a slower pace. Those two aid stations are going to be a good opportunity for you to get more water on board, get more hydration on board, switch your bottles over. So I would kind of plan that into your race plan with which aid station you're going to use to switch your bottles over, get more fuel on board, whatever it is that you need to do.
Perfect. So you do your 30k out, you do your top loop twice, back down your 30k, back into transition. Talk to us about T2.
So T2, so your T2 is smack bang in the middle of the city centre. The closer you get into it, the noise is getting louder and louder and louder, so you know you're coming into T2. One thing I really enjoyed about Copenhagen is they have bike catchers at T2. So all you need to do is get off your bike, hand the bike to someone who's running at you, and then run straight into the tent.
It's like Kona treatment.
Exactly, yeah. And so the T2 tent setup will be identical to T1. So if you've memorised where kind of like your blue bag was in T1, that's exactly where your red bag's going to be in T2. And obviously it's all numbered for you, so you know exactly where you've got to go. T2 is literally layered with crowds and spectators. So one thing I would say here is just try not to get too excited as you're running out of T2 because it's just loud, there's people cheering. So try to settle into your pace and not get too excited running out of the transition.
So it sounds like the atmosphere in T2 is amazing. So hopefully we'll all be in a nice positive headspace as we head out onto another 4-lapped run course. But can you talk us through what the course looks like? I think for once, finally a flat Ironman run course.
Yeah, it's mostly flat. I think one thing that can catch people out in the run course is that there is a few terrain changes. There's a couple of sections where you're running on cobbles. So I actually think that the cobbles might impact your choice of footwear as well. Whether you want to choose wearing carbon shoes or not, like the cobbles may impact that, just disrupts your rhythm a little bit. And then there's a couple of, I would describe as false flat sections. So not really a climb or a hill, but they definitely, you know, once you're on lap 3, lap 4, they definitely take some energy out of your legs on those sections. But other than that, it is pretty flat and then mostly on just tarmac.
I love a lapped course.
And
I've made no stranger of that in the previous episodes. I think it's great to chip them away.
I enjoyed the 4-lap course for sure. For many reasons, I enjoyed that course.
Does that mean that the spectators and the atmosphere is epic because it's in a condensed 4-lap like circumference?
Yeah. So what will happen? So obviously you're running out of T2 into the city. That's where most of the crowds are isolated. And when I say you're talking 6 rows deep of crowds, like there's a lot of people, and that area is also conveniently placed near like the local pubs and stuff. So everyone's got a beer in their hand, so they're always a little bit more loud after that. Those sections as well, also where I was very surprised about this, but there was multiple DJs on course. And so I'm very much hoping that you're going to get the DJs this year and maybe it's our age, right? But they seem to choose music that was really like nostalgic to me. So I was like running through the crowds, like just enjoying the music. And then, there is a part of the course where you will run out. So the furthest part, I think it's the most north or the furthest part of the course away from the finish line. It does get a little quieter. There is still spectators there though, but it is a little bit more quieter on sections. This is actually a section though where there is, if you're interested, a few highlights to spot. Like someone told me about spotting the Little Mermaid on course. I don't know if you've heard about the Little Mermaid in Copenhagen, but there's a statue called the Little Mermaid. I actually didn't say this, but yeah, there is. If you want to look out for that, that is the furthest point of the course where you basically, on the first lap, it's 6 to 8k. You will turn around to head straight back, basically.
I have seen the Little Mermaid in Copenhagen, but I wasn't 30k into an Ironman when I last saw her.
I didn't see it, and I finished like, where was this mermaid? But apparently it's there.
I guess another thing athletes can do is when there's not so many spectators, and something I always try to do is almost like use the other athletes around me. Like there will be, it sounds like this is going to be quite a busy course with lots of athletes racing. So sometimes I'll just pick someone and just decide, right, I'm just going to sit behind them or sit next to them or just try and use someone else as a little bit of focus.
I would say that the course is quite frequently changing. Some people don't like that, but I found that helps with the motivation and the mental aspect of it. Like, you're always looking for a course, like a change in direction or a course change. There is a few sections where you're just running straight, which helps obviously with your pace and your rhythm and finding your flow. When there's a change of direction, it can disrupt your rhythm a little bit, but I think the course, with how it runs quite mentally well because of the laps, and you are changing direction, but also there's enough areas for you to run a good pace as well.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. Of if the terrain or the atmosphere is changing constantly, you can almost break it down further than just the laps.
Yeah. And there's generally always something quite nice to look at there as well.
I mean, coming from the girl that managed to miss the Eiffel Tower in Paris Marathon, I don't think I'd have a chance of finding the Little Mermaid.
No.
But it's nice to keep busy and occupied picking off things on the lap, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
So I guess one other thing for athletes to consider, and we touched on this a little bit when talking about the bike course, but in Copenhagen in August, it could be warm. I know you had quite a warm day last year, and I'm trying not to look too far ahead at the forecast, but it looks like it might be a warm day again this weekend. What should people be considering for trying to keep cool on a race like this?
Yeah, it was warm last year, and I think you need to start your cooling strategy early. Start at the beginnings on the bike. So it's even if you don't feel hot on the bike, use every aid station as an opportunity to kind of pour water over yourself, over your head, get ahead of the cooling before you even get hot. Then exactly the same on the run course. Use every aid station just to pour water over yourself. There last year they had sponges, kind of wet sponges available. I would literally grab one, take it, and then wrap it around your neck or something just to keep yourself extra cool. They put extra water literally just there for cooling. The volunteers at the aid stations were very good at kind of just chucking water over you anyway. So just do it even if you don't feel hot. Then kind of like, I suppose, with the pace and the intensity, you're kind of going to want to use RP, heart rate and pace to guide your intensity here to make sure we're not overheating. So make sure you have a pace range. You've got a target pace in mind, but we want to make sure that your RPE isn't too high and your heart rate isn't too high to allow you to nail that pace. So just make sure your RP is like around like a 3 to 4 out of 10 for a marathon. Then your heart rate is where it should be sitting for what you know it should be, and then the pace will kind of follow that as well, just to control and manage that core body temperature.
Brilliant, thank you. I think that's helpful for anyone that is racing, even if you are a seasoned triathlete who's done multiple Ironmans. I think heat control and management has been something at the forefront of this particular season, more so than we've ever seen. I think we also know from Total Tri, we've got a lot of first timers coming to this race. So is there anything in particular over, what we've discussed today that you would give as top tips for those people that are targeting Copenhagen as their very first Ironman?
I mean, it's quite a difficult question to answer, I think, because I think it does depend. But I would say, like, respect the distance, but don't be scared of it because you've trained for it. And Copenhagen, is an incredible course, and I think it's an amazing course. Whether you're going through your first Ironman or whether you're going through a PB, you prepared well and just pace it sensibly. Fuel from the start, but make sure you actually look up and enjoy the experience as well. Because if it's your first one, you only get that first time once. So just make sure you actually enjoy it as well.
And the first timer's bell. Don't forget the first timer's bell.
Last year, hopefully they've got a sturdier bell this year, because last year by the time I got to it broke.
Oh no.
So. But I still rang it. So even if it's broke, give it a ring. But yeah, make sure you set yourself up for a good ringing the bell and a good finish line photo.
Yeah, not stopping your watch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it does look like an incredible finish line there. The atmosphere looks, we say this on every podcast, but the atmosphere does look amazing there. So like you said, if it is your first time, don't worry about sprinting down the finish line as fast as you can. Like, give yourself the time to take it all in. It's normal to feel emotional as well, isn't it? You might feel a little bit emotional when you're on that red carpet?
What will happen there is kind of like you enter, suppose, the finish line area, which unfortunately you'll kind of run through each lap. But when you're coming in for that last time, you'll enter the area, and it's almost like a snake's kind of round. And so each, like, there's crowds everywhere. So literally just as soon as you enter, I'm going to call it like a stadium. Like, it's not a stadium, but it's the palace grounds. So as soon as you enter that, just literally just take that as the start of the red carpet.
I am very excited.
Yeah.
You're selling it to us.
Yeah, I'll continue to sell it to you, I think.
Well, Milly is actually the reason I booked Ironman Copenhagen, so because you had such a good race.
Yeah, it'll be fun. You'll love it.
And you have already touched on this a little bit on the individual elements, but are there any specific bits of kit or equipment you recommend for people, or is that very individualized?
Again, I think with all these things, it's individualized, isn't it? But like bike-wise, it's definitely an aero bike course I had a deep front wheel and a disc wheel on. I think the course to utilize that. On the run, I personally didn't wear carbon shoes, but that was a personal choice for many reasons. Risk of injury and things like that, and also like the pace. I think like I was going to run, potentially wouldn't have utilized the carbon shoes to their full ability. So again, that's a personal decision that you can make. One thing I will say with that though, because there is cobbled sections towards the end of the marathon, I was running past people who were very unstable on the ground through the cobbled sections. Potentially something to think about when deciding what footwear to use.
And we always say this, don't we, on these podcasts, but don't do anything that you haven't done in training. So if you've done your training in a certain pair of shoes, now is not the time to be thinking, oh, maybe I should wear carbons or maybe I shouldn't. Like, stick to what you've trained in and trust that will be.
I mean, I wore my training shoes. I didn't even get a single blister from the marathon. So I was very comfortable. It allowed me, basically ran a consistent pace throughout the marathon. And I'm not sure I would have done that if I was in carbon shoes. But that's not to say, you can't wear carbon shoes either.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Milly. So we wrap up the podcast every time. Same question. If there is one thing you could pick from this podcast to take away that people should remember, what would it be?
I don't know how to sum it up in one point. I think each element of the course just has such special elements. So I think you need to take in the swim course, take in the bike course, and take in the run course. But for me, I will always say about the run course and just the crowds on the run course and the atmosphere.
So absorb it and remember where you are and just soaking it up. That's amazing. Thank you. I mean, obviously there will be lots of TTTers there down supporting the race. So to everybody that's racing, good luck, and a very special good luck to you, Katy.
Thank you. This podcast has made me very excited. And next time we speak, I'll be on the other side of my Ironman.
We can ask you all about it.
Good luck, everyone.